Okay, so let's uh let's talk about visas
Oh, yeah.
and specifically what happens when things go wrong.
Right.
Like you've got your dreams, you've got your plans, maybe even family waiting, and then bam, your visa application is refused or your visa is
Ah,
canceled.
tough situation.
It's a stressful situation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this deep dive,
Hmm.
we're going to look at
Yeah.
a way to potentially fight back against those decisions.
Right.
And that's through something called judicial review.
That's it.
Now, just to be clear,
Yeah.
judicial review isn't about just complaining that you didn't like the outcome.
Yeah, no. It's definitely not a whinge fest.
Right. It's not about saying, oh, I disagree with this decision.
Exactly.
It's more about making sure that the decision maker,
Yeah.
whoever that was,
Yeah.
actually followed the rules.
Yes, follow the process.
And made a lawful decision.
A lawful and fair decision.
So it's kind of like,
You could think of it like...
yeah, give us an analogy.
Well, you could think of it like a referee in a game.
Okay.
In a football match, you've got the referee there to make sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Right.
It's not about who scores the most goals. It's about making sure the game's played fairly.
Right. So it's about the process, not necessarily
Exactly.
the outcome in every case.
Yeah, the court's role is to make sure the process was fair and lawful,
Okay.
not to just redecide the case based on their own opinions.
Got it.
Yeah.
So who can actually apply for this judicial review?
Right.
Is it anyone who's had a visa issue?
It's not as broad as that.
Okay.
There are a few key scenarios where it comes up.
Okay.
One is if you've already gone through the appeals process
Yeah.
with the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, the AAT,
Yeah.
and you still think the decision was wrong.
Right. So you've gone through that first level of appeal.
Exactly. You've had your say,
Yeah.
and you still feel like justice wasn't served.
Okay.
That's where judicial review can come in.
All right. What about if you haven't gone through the AAT?
Yeah. So another common one is if your visa was canceled.
Okay.
Under Section 501,
All right.
which is all about character grounds.
Oh, so this is where things get a little
Yeah.
bit more serious.
These are the cases that often involve criminal history
Right.
or security concerns.
Okay.
And it can be a way to challenge the basis for that cancellation.
So if the government's saying we're canceling your visa because of character issues,
Exactly.
you can use judicial review to say,
Say, hang on a minute.
hey,
You haven't got the facts right.
you haven't looked at everything.
Or you've misinterpreted something.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about other situations? Like, let's say someone's applying for a skilled visa
Right.
and they hit a roadblock.
Absolutely. So think about a tech company
Yeah.
that wants to sponsor a software developer
Mm-hmm.
from overseas.
Yep.
They've done everything right, submitted all the paperwork,
Sure.
but their nomination gets refused.
Okay.
Maybe the Department of Home Affairs doesn't think the role is genuinely skilled.
Right.
Or they question whether the company really needs an overseas worker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Judicial review lets them challenge that,
Okay. So it's not just for individuals.
not just individuals.
It's for companies as well
Yeah, companies can use it too.
to fight for.
To say, look, we need this person.
We need this person for our business.
Exactly.
All right. So it's not just about like, I want to be in Australia.
Right.
It's about we need this person for our business.
Yeah, the business needs them.
But I'm guessing it's not that easy to just show up.
It's not a free-for-all. And you
Then-
can't just walk in.
I think this was wrong.
Yeah, you can't just say, I disagree.
You need something more.
You need a legal basis.
Okay.
And the court needs to find a specific legal mistake.
Okay.
This is what's called a jurisdictional error.
Jurisdictional error.
And here's the kicker. You usually only have 35 days
35 days.
from the date of the decision
Wow.
to apply.
That's a tight deadline.
It is. So you got to act fast.
You can't just sit around
No, you got to get on it.
and hope it goes away.
Yeah, you got to be on the ball.
So let's unpack this idea of
Yeah.
a jurisdictional error.
Right.
What kind of legal mistakes?
So there are a few key types.
Okay.
One is ignoring important facts.
Okay.
So imagine someone applies for a visa and they've got strong family ties in Australia.
Mhm.
They've got a track record of community involvement, all this good stuff.
Right.
But the decision completely ignores all of it.
Right. They just focus on this one tiny little thing.
Yeah, they cherry pick.
And ignore
Yeah.
the bigger picture.
And that could be grounds for a jurisdictional error
Okay.
because it's about making sure all the relevant information was considered.
So that's one type of error.
Yeah.
What are the other types?
Another one is relying on incorrect information.
Okay.
So this could be anything from misunderstanding someone's qualifications
Mm-hmm.
to using outdated employment history.
Right.
If the decision was based on faulty or outdated info,
Okay.
it could be unlawful.
All right. And then there's a tricky one.
Yes.
This making a decision that's just so unreasonable
Yeah.
that no reasonable person would agree with it.
The no reasonable person test.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It's complex.
Yeah. How do you even prove that in court?
Well, it boils down to this.
Yeah.
Was the decision so out of line with the evidence
Yeah.
and the law that no reasonable person could have reached that conclusion?
Okay, so give me an example.
Let's say someone's applying for a partner visa.
Mm-hmm.
They've got tons of proof of a genuine relationship,
Okay.
but they get refused because they don't have a joint bank account statement.
Oh, so they're just looking at that one tiny little thing.
Right now, a joint bank account can be one indicator of a genuine relationship.
Right. But there are other ways to prove it.
Exactly. There are lots of ways.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be reasonable to just
Yep.
focus on that one thing
While ignoring.
and ignore all the other evidence.
Yeah, all the other proof that
Yeah.
you have a genuine relationship.
Exactly. And the court might look at that and say,
Yeah.
that's unreasonable.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's about looking at the big picture,
Right.
not just a narrow interpretation of the rules.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you think there's been one of these
Right.
jurisdictional errors.
You've spotted one.
Does that mean you automatically
Not quite.
take your visa?
No, it's not an automatic win.
Okay.
The court can cancel the original decision
Mm-hmm.
if they find it was unlawful,
Right.
but then they send it back.
Back to the original decision maker.
Back to the Department of Home Affairs, usually,
Okay.
for another look.
So it's kind of like a do-over.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Yeah, but this time
They get it right.
they get it right.
Okay, so it's not a guaranteed win,
No.
but it forces them to take a second look.
Yeah. They have to reconsider
Yeah,
with fresh eyes.
and
Or
hopefully
with concern.
what the court said.
Following the court's guidance.
All right, it seems
Fair enough.
it's a chance to make things right.
But let's talk about the practical side of things.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty.
This is all pretty complex.
It is. There's a lot to it.
So I'm guessing you're going to tell me.
Well, in these situations, it's really important
Yeah.
to have someone on your side who understands the system.
Okay, so to get some help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where
So talk to a lawyer.
you got it.
All right.
Judicial review has these tight deadlines, specific procedures.
Right.
It can be really overwhelming to try to navigate it alone.
Especially when you're already stressed out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're already dealing with a lot.
About your visa.
Yeah. And that's where having someone like Bansal Lawyers
Okay.
can make a world of difference.
All right. So we're
I'm
going
going to dive into that.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, before we do,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay. Fire away.
What would be the biggest unfairness
Mm-hmm.
in a visa decision for you?
What facts or circumstances
Good question.
do you think are absolutely crucial
Right.
for a fair assessment
What matters most?
of your situation?
Yeah. Think about it.
Think about it. So before the break, we were talking about that question of what would be the biggest unfairness in a visa decision for you? And
It's a good one to think about.
yeah, keep that in mind as we
Absolutely.
dive a little deeper now into how to actually navigate
Right. The nitty gritty.
this process
Yeah.
of judicial review.
Okay.
So how does Bansal Lawyers fit into all of this?
Right.
So they're not just showing up in court and,
No. It's much more than that.
throwing around legal arguments.
Yeah. It all starts with understanding your situation.
Okay.
Really listening to your story.
Right. So it's about more than just ticking boxes on a form.
Exactly. It's about getting the full picture.
Yeah.
Why you think the decision was unfair,
Yeah.
what evidence you have,
So they're really taking the time to understand
and really listen.
your unique situation.
Yeah. It's about building that narrative,
Okay.
showing why the decision was wrong and what makes your case special.
Right. So they become your advocate
Exactly.
in this process.
They're on your team.
And sifting through all that legal jargon and
Yeah. All the complicated stuff.
and helping you present your case
Exactly.
in a clear and persuasive way.
In a way that the court will understand.
And this is where their expertise
Right.
really comes in handy.
Especially when it comes to those jurisdictional errors.
Right. Those legal mistakes
Exactly. They know what to look for.
that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they can spot those missteps.
Like legal detectives?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, finding those clues that others might miss.
Yeah. They're like legal Sherlock Holmes.
Okay, so let's say they find something.
Right.
What happens then?
Well, that's where those tight deadlines come in.
Right. 35 days.
35 days, remember?
Yeah.
So they got to move fast.
They've got to
Make sure you don't miss any deadlines.
gather the right evidence.
Exactly. And they know what the court will be looking for.
Okay, so it sounds like having that
It's
expertise
invaluable.
would be really helpful,
Yeah, it takes a lot of the stress out of it.
especially when you're dealing with so much
Yeah, when you're already feeling overwhelmed.
uncertainty
Exactly.
and pressure.
It's like having a weight lifted off your shoulders.
So then you've got the court proceeding itself.
Right? The big day in court.
Bansal Lawyers is there
Yeah. They represent you.
representing you.
They present your case to the judge,
Yeah.
make sure your voice is heard.
So they're like a translator almost
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
between
Between the legal world,
the complex legal world.
yeah, all the jargon and the procedures
Yeah.
and your personal experience,
Right.
they bridge that gap.
But even with all that support,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee of winning.
That's true. Judicial review is complex,
Right.
and the outcome isn't always predictable.
So you can't just assume that because you've got a lawyer.
No, it's
Yeah.
not a magic wand.
You're gonna win.
Yeah, there are no guarantees.
But they can help you maximize your chances.
Exactly. They build a strong case. President effectively makes sure your rights are protected.
And even if the court doesn't completely overturn the original decision,
Right.
going through judicial review can still be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. It forces the decision maker to take a second look
Right.
with a fresh perspective.
And hopefully taking into account
The court's guidance.
the court's feedback.
So even if it's not a slam dunk,
Yeah.
it's still a powerful tool.
It's about pushing for a fairer outcome.
Okay, so how do you know
Right.
if judicial review is the right path for you?
Good question. So there are a few red flags to watch out for.
What are some of those red flags?
One of the clearest signs is if you have new evidence
Okay.
that wasn't available during your initial application or appeal.
Like new evidence that's come to light.
Yeah, maybe new medical records,
Okay.
changes in your family situation, or documents that support your claims more strongly. So if there's information that wasn't
That wasn't considered the first time around.
considered the first time.
Yeah, this gives you a chance to bring it to light.
Right. So it's about making sure they
The
have
full picture,
the full picture.
not just a partial view.
Okay, what are some other situations where this might be a good option?
Another big one is if you believe the decision maker misapplied the law or misunderstood the policies.
Okay, so it's not just about factual errors.
No, it's about legal errors too.
It's about
Maybe they used the wrong criteria
legal errors.
or ignored an important legal precedent.
So they didn't follow the proper legal process.
And that's what judicial review is designed to address.
But you need expert eyes
Yes, you need someone who knows the law inside and out
to spot those
to catch those mistakes.
mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people worry that challenging a visa decision will just make things worse.
Right, they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, they think
Yeah.
they'll be seen as a troublemaker.
They think it'll hurt their chances.
And it'll ruin their chances of ever getting a visa.
Yeah, it's a common fear.
What do you say to that?
Well, it's understandable to feel that way,
Yeah.
but the judicial review process is designed to be fair and impartial.
Right. So it's not
The judges aren't there to punish people.
about being difficult or disrespectful.
No, they're there to make sure the law is applied correctly.
Okay. So it's about making sure the system
The system itself is working properly.
is working the way it should.
Yeah.
But I bet this whole process can feel
Oh, absolutely. It's intimidating.
really intimidating.
Yeah. Especially if you're not familiar with the legal system.
What are some other fears or concerns
Yeah, what else might be holding people back?
that people might have about going through this process?
Well, one big one is the cost.
Right?
Legal fees can be daunting.
Yeah.
And it's important to be realistic about that.
So it's a financial
But remember, you could recover those costs
consideration.
if the court rules in your favor.
Yep.
And even if you don't win the process itself, can lead to a more favorable outcome
Okay.
when your case is reconsidered.
So you've got to weigh
You got to weigh the risks and benefits.
those risks and benefits
Exactly.
and having a clear understanding
Yeah. And that's where that free consultation
of what to expect.
with Bansal Lawyers can be so helpful.
Okay. So you can talk to them
Yeah, they can assess your situation,
like,
explain the costs,
about those costs.
help you decide if it's the right path for you.
Okay. So cost is one concern.
Yeah.
What else might be holding people back?
Another common fear is that it'll drag on forever.
Oh, yeah.
Just add more stress and uncertainty.
The idea of being stuck in
Yeah, nobody wants to be in legal limbo for years.
legal limbo for years
Right.
is definitely scary.
But while legal proceedings can take time, Judicial review is generally faster
Okay.
than other types of court cases.
So it's not
And Bansal Lawyers knows how important a timely resolution is.
about these endless court battles.
Yeah, they work hard to make sure your case is handled efficiently.
Okay, that's good to know.
So you're not waiting around forever.
It's not about just waiting and waiting and waiting.
No, they keep things moving.
But I think for a lot of people,
Yeah.
the biggest fear is just the unknown.
The fear of the unknown.
Love is big, scary.
Yeah, the legal system can feel very intimidating,
Legals.
especially if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, and you don't know
Yeah, it's like a foreign language.
how it works.
But that's where having someone like Bansal Lawyers by your side can make a world of difference.
Right, they can.
They act as your guide.
Hold your hand through the process.
Yeah, they explain everything in plain English, answer your questions.
So you don't have to face it alone.
Exactly. You've got a team supporting you.
So we've talked about cost time
Yeah, the big ones.
and that general feeling of intimidation.
The fear factor.
What are some specific things
Okay, let's get specific.
people can look out for
Yeah, what are the red flags?
that might signal that they should at least explore this as an option?
Okay, so we've already talked about new evidence and legal errors.
Mm-hmm.
Another red flag is if you believe the decision maker was biased or prejudiced against you.
Ooh, that's a serious accusation.
It is. It's a big deal.
How do you even begin to prove bias?
It can be tough to prove outright bias.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are patterns in the decision-making process.
Okay.
Or specific things the decision maker said that suggest they weren't impartial.
So it's like those subtle clues
Yeah, like little hints.
that point to a preconceived notion?
Exactly, like they already had their mind made up.
Right.
And an experienced immigration lawyer can help analyze that.
So they can spot those things
Yeah, they know what to look for.
that you might not pick up on.
Yeah, they can see the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've got new evidence, legal errors, potential bias. Anything else?
One more thing to consider is whether they fail to follow the proper procedures.
Okay.
There are specific rules and guidelines that govern the visa process.
Yeah.
And if those weren't followed correctly, it could invalidate the decision.
So it's not just about the final decision.
No, it's about the journey too.
It's about how they got there.
Exactly. Every step needs to be done by the book.
So judicial review is about ensuring the integrity
Integrity of the system.
of the whole system,
Yeah.
making sure
everyone's treated fairly.
everyone's treated fairly and that decisions are made according to the law.
That's the goal.
But it's important to remember
Yes.
that judicial review isn't a magic bullet.
No, it's not a guaranteed win.
It's a complex process,
It is.
and there's no guarantee of success.
Yeah. You need to be realistic about that.
So speaking of being realistic,
Right. Let's talk about what happens next.
what happens?
What to expect if you decide to go down this path.
Yeah, what are the potential outcomes,
The potential outcomes.
the challenges,
The challenges you might face.
and how to best prepare yourself?
How to prepare for this journey. We'll delve into all of that
Right.
in the final part of our deep dive.
Another cliffhanger.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back to answer
Yeah, we'll answer those questions
some of those lingering questions
and hopefully empower you
and give you the information you need
to make informed decisions
to make informed decisions about your own situation.
about your own visa journey.
Okay, stay tuned. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into challenging visa decisions. We were talking about those what ifs, those nagging doubts that might be holding you back.
Yeah, it's understandable to have those fears, especially when something as important as your visa is on the line.
So let's try to bust some of those myths.
Okay, let's do it.
One I hear a lot is that applying for judicial review will just make things worse.
Oh, yeah, that's a common one.
Yeah, people worry they'll anger the decision makers.
Right, like they'll be seen as a troublemaker.
Yeah, and ruin their chances of ever getting a visa.
It's like you don't want to poke the bear kind of thing.
Exactly.
But in reality, judicial review is meant to be impartial.
Right.
It's about making sure the law is applied correctly.
Not about punishing people for speaking up.
Exactly. The judges are independent. They focus on the facts, the legal principles.
So they're not going to hold a grudge.
No, they're not looking at it emotionally.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the cost? I've heard judicial review can be really expensive.
Yeah, cost is definitely a valid concern. Legal fees can be a barrier, but it's important to remember you could recover those costs if the court rules in your favor.
Right, so there's a chance you could get that money back.
Exactly. And even if you don't win the process itself, can sometimes lead to a better outcome when your case is reconsidered.
Okay, so it's about weighing those potential benefits against the cost.
Right, and having a clear understanding of what to expect.
And isn't that something you can discuss in a free consultation?
Absolutely. Bansal Lawyers can help you understand those costs, Weigh those risks and benefits and figure out if it's the right path for you.
Okay. So reach out, get informed.
Yeah, there's no harm in having that conversation.
Another fear I hear a lot is about time.
Oh yeah, the time factor.
People worry that it'll take years and years to resolve.
I get that nobody wants to be stuck in legal limbo.
Right, you don't want your life to be on hold.
Exactly. But while any legal process can take time, judicial review is generally much faster than other types of court cases.
Okay, so it's not about those endless court battles we see on TV.
No, Bansal Lawyers understands the urgency they work to make sure your case is handled efficiently.
So you're not just waiting and waiting and waiting.
They try to keep things moving.
But I think for a lot of people, the biggest fear is just the fear of the unknown.
Oh, absolutely. The legal system can be intimidating.
Especially if you're not familiar with how it all works.
It's like its own language, its own world.
Exactly.
But that's where having an expert guide makes all the difference.
It's like having a translator, someone who can explain those complexities in a way that makes sense.
Exactly. Bansal Lawyers can be that advocate for you, explaining things clearly, answering your questions, and making sure you feel empowered.
So you don't have to face it alone.
You've got a team on your side.
So for our listeners out there who are considering judicial review, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I'd say don't let fear or uncertainty hold you back from exploring your options if you think you've been treated unfairly. If you think there was a mistake, if you have new evidence that wasn't considered, reach out for a consultation.
It's about knowing your rights.
Exactly, and fighting for a fair outcome.
Don't let a potentially unfair decision derail your future.
You've got options.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into judicial review. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have from the basics to those common myths and fears.
Hopefully, we've given our listeners the information and the confidence they need to make informed decisions about their own situations.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
And remember, you don't have to face this alone. There are experts out there ready to help.
Reach out and get the support you need.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious.